I'd like to introduce you officially to my audience, and this is Liz Reese from
Hello.
Squared Mortgage in California. And Liz is a specialist in divorce mortgage lending. Did I get that right?
Yeah, divorce mortgage guidance. Same thing.
Divorce mortgage guidance. Okay. So I guess the question is what's the difference between a normal mortgage lender guidance person and someone specializing in what you specialize in with divorce? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So the lending itself, the real fundamentals of it is the same. Any loan person can help you refinance or purchase. The difference when you specialize in it is more like, I know the right questions to ask. I know the pitfalls, the things to avoid, how to deal with if you receive alimony or child support as income, how to know how to deal with that, how to count that. Alimony is counted as a debt, where if you're paying it, it's counted as a debt, not a debt. It's counted as a loss in income, not a debt. So it's just counted differently. And so it's important to work with somebody who knows kind of the nuances of divorce and can also help you, if you're going to keep the house you're going to live in, there's some extra reports that you want to have done to make sure that you have calculated that asset correctly, like the value of it.
So how long have you been in this field, divorce particularly? What's your background?
Yeah, so I've been in the lending industry for 6 years, and I've been helping clients with divorce mortgage stuff for the past, I'd say 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. Specifically, my designation has been in the past 6 months. And that was being trained by Professor Murray of Harvard Law. She has a program to get designated in it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've been helping clients with divorce, their situations, helping them pay off. Mainly it's been helping the wives pay off the husbands for the most part.
Right, we're going to get to that in a little bit, because that's certainly something I think a lot of divorcing women, are exposed to.
Yeah. And so I decided to get my designation and lean into it a little bit more, because I really could see how helpful it was to these women in these circumstances, to really have an expert guiding them through it. You need a team surrounding you when you're getting divorced, and the mortgage person is really an important part of that professional team. I'm not talking about like your mom and your girlfriends, but like the professionals that are helping you.
Yes, attorneys and coaches and therapists and all kinds of, right, absolutely.
Yeah, so the mortgage, even if you don't have a home or you're going to just sell the house and do something else, it's important to have a mortgage person in your corner, because we can really help you stay on track in our advisement of how to keep your credit in good standing, how to get yourself in a position to purchase in the future. If your spouse has just started paying you alimony or child support, we can't count it as income until you've been receiving it for 6 months. So it's getting you set up so that you can be a homeowner in the future.
So tell me then, so let's just say somebody comes to you, and I know often when women come to me, they're in the beginning of the divorce, or they're just thinking about it, and they're kind of like a deer in the headlight, and they don't really know where to go. So what would you say, what advice would you give to women who are on the fence about getting divorced? So what do they need to know ahead of time about keeping the house or getting their spouse's name off the mortgage? What would you say to that?
So there's a couple things. If you want to keep the house, then we need to basically get you pre-approved to buy it from your husband. That's essentially what's happening, is you are getting pre-approved to buy the house. So we need to figure out, if you can afford it, It's a little bit tricky in the beginning. It's important to have a discussion in the beginning because you need to know how much money you need to have to qualify. Maybe you have a full-time job and you can qualify on your own without alimony and child support as a consideration. Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's like the golden ideal scenario. But if you need alimony and child support to qualify, it's important to figure out what that amount is. You know, child support is a calculation. I mean, that's like the lawyers put that into their system and it just spits something out. But the alimony, you can get paid out in a lump sum. Mm-hmm. You can get paid out monthly. So it's important to know if we need to count that alimony for monthly income. You don't want a lump sum because then that just, you don't have the income.
Do attorneys typically provide that kind of advice and that distinction? Do you find that?
I don't think the attorneys would realize. They can figure out the alimony amounts for you, but they don't have the expertise to know that it's how it calculates for a mortgage and how it applies and could be important and how you set it up. You know, it's got to, all of it, child support and alimony has to show that it will continue for 3 years or more.
Right.
So, you know, if your kid is 17 years old, we're not going to be able to count alimony, or I'm sorry, child support.
Child support.
Right. And so there are things like that that's important to prepare yourself for in the beginning, because if you really are going to need alimony or child support, but your kid is 17, we already know that's off the table. And so it will help you, I think kind of almost come to terms with what it is you can do. If you can't keep your, you know, the marital home, mm-hmm. because you can't qualify for it, or maybe you need a co-signer, you know, it can help you position yourself to be prepared for, so when you go to an attorney, that you know what it is you're going in for needing.
Right. And that's why you mentioned you're part of that divorce team.
Right.
So
right.
that this person can actually build the support and have access to the knowledge that she needs to have access to before she commits to something that she later regrets. Has that happened to you? Have you found people coming in under misinterpretations or mistakes that they've already made that you could have possibly helped them prevent?
I think so. I have one client who, she really wants to keep the marital home and she just can't afford it, frankly. She doesn't have the income for it. Her daughter is 17. And we've been talking for a while about finding a co-signer or something like that. And it's tricky. We are in California, this woman also, and it's just expensive. You know, her house payment is the same as what her rent payment's going to be. So if she can figure it out, if we can come up with a plan, that would be great. But, you know, she's not listening to me, frankly, to be honest with you.
She's not.
She'll get alimony, but this whole process for her has been going on for probably, I want to say 6 to 8 months, and they haven't come to terms with what her alimony payment's going to be, so we still can't count that alimony payment yet because she hasn't been receiving it for 6 months.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be, you know, if you arrange with your husband that you guys haven't talked to an attorney yet, but he's going to pay you, I don't know, $2,000 a month for child support. Mm-hmm. If he just starts doing that and the bank can see that it's consistently happening, and then a divorce decree comes into play that says he has to pay you $2,000 a month, that's all that's needed. It doesn't have to be that the divorce decree was on May 1st and
it goes back. It's retroactive. It's retroactive.
Right, it'll be retroactive. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. That's important for them to know then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I'm telling my client. Like, we need to see, like right now, his paycheck is going into their joint account, and she doesn't want to give that up, right? But to set herself up in the future, because this is happening, what she really needs to do is his income, his paycheck needs to go into a different account, or she needs to set up her own account and have some sort of automatic deposit put into it from that bank account, so that we can show the bank that he has been paying this consistently. Now he's required by law, but he has been doing it, so we can count it as income.
I see.
So, yeah, but I don't know. I think it's hard because as women, we want to help not disrupt our kids' lives as much as possible, right?
Right.
And I think that sometimes you want to keep the marital home, but it's taking all your money. You might qualify for it, but it really is just every penny you have is going into this house. And maybe keeping the house isn't always the best thing for, your family life, your after period of just, if all your income is going to your house, that's not helpful either. So I think that's important to talk to a lone person about and see what are your options, and it might be just better to get into a more affordable space for what your situation is,
Right, that's true. And yeah, there are clients, I know I've come across some too, that really, because they don't want to disrupt their kids' lives, they really do want to hold on to that house they've lived in for all of their years since they've had a family. It's right down the street from the school. The kids can walk to the school. All the neighborhood friends were there. So that is something. What are the most, if you had to say the most 3 important things women need to know about refinancing their homes as divorcees, what would you say they are?
The 3 most important, well, 1, you've got to have the income. You've got to figure out the income. 2, you need to have decent credit. The best credit score is 800, above 800. You don't want to be any lower than 620. That's going to be a hard loan. Credit is so important. It just makes everything cheaper, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's like a gold star, a gold stamp.
Yeah, credit, income, and credit. And then the other thing that's really important, I think, if you're going to buy your spouse out of the house, is that you get an inspection done on the house, as if you were purchasing it. If you were purchasing a house, you would get an inspection done because you want to know what's wrong with it. And if something's wrong with it, you're going to have the seller pay for it, right? Or you're going to negotiate something. And so in this circumstance, even if it's the house you built together and you've lived there forever and you just think nothing is wrong with it, you never know. And a home inspection might be $150, but I recently had one with a couple that it was their second home, beautiful. They didn't have any kids, so it was just, had maintained that really beautiful status.
What happened?
They were selling it. They ended up selling it, and an inspection was done. And underneath the house was the drainage wasn't set up right. And so the water, when it would rain, was all settling underneath their house. And it was on stilts, but you couldn't see. It wasn't like really high stilts. It was just enough with like a covering, so you would never guess. And it was their second home, so they weren't there that often. It had $80,000 worth of damage under the house in just water damage. And so that's a lot of money, and you would never know. Going into that house, it was beautiful, updated. It sold in 5 seconds, but then when the inspection was done, it just turned into this whole mess. So
that is such an excellent point, because I can tell you, if I were in that situation, I don't think, especially if I'd owned the house and built it and we kept on top of it, I would never think, well, I know this house, I don't need to do an inspection. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to just try. I know it as it is, and I'd like to keep it. So that's really helpful information.
Yeah, because your ex-husband is liable for half of the wear and tear on the house. Mm-hmm. So why not have him pay for half of the repair on it?
Right.
So I think those are really important things in a refinance. And if you you can get him off a title, but he will not come off the loan unless you refinance. And same with you, if you're going to move out of the house, and your name is on the loan, you want to refinance and get off of that house, because if your name is on a debt that you don't have any control of, the other person has control of your credit score. And if they get angry and they don't care about their credit score and they're going to stop making the house payment, it's going to ruin your credit, and your chances of purchasing in the future are going to be really slim.
Those are great alerts for us to hear about, because those are things that not everybody knows, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Any other pitfalls that you see women falling into? And you've kind of outlined some pretty important ones to keep your eyes open for. Anything else that you can think of, or that you care to share?
Those seem to be the really big ones, is the inspection and getting off the loan, or getting your spouse off the spouse.
By refinancing.
Right, the financing. And then
alimony.
If you have a line of credit, so let's say you have a home equity line of credit, you want to make sure, if you're going to keep the house, that I'm just trying to think of like the best way to share it. So if you have a home equity line of credit, if you're going to keep the house, you need to make sure that you've closed the access to it, or make sure that it cannot be drawn on anymore, because you know there's this one case that the husband had access to this home equity line of credit, and he just had forgotten about it, frankly. And when things all got settled, he had used it like a credit card and had just racked up all the debt on it. So if you have a home equity line of credit, make sure that gets taken care of too. However,
and that means either you pay it all off together, or you somehow get his name off of it?
Well, you can't get his name off of it unless you refinance. So if he's coming off the loan, or maybe you two are you're the only one on the loan, but your husband has access to it somehow. It's kind of like it's a credit card. You know, you don't want him to have access to your credit card. You just need to make sure,
right,
if there's a home equity line of credit, that's
taken.
I would just shut it down.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Breathe it. Because if you sign off that you are accepting the debt of the home, even if he's ran up the home equity line of credit, like, it's still your responsibility.
It's still your responsibility, right? And that's really important to know. So these are just four key important factors for women to know when they're getting into this kind of a situation.
Right.
You mentioned that you're in California, and you were recently designated in California. And I believe you're also getting your designation for Florida. Is that correct?
Right. So my licensing, so the lending license, the designation is nationwide, and I can help anybody, but I'm licensed to do lending in California, Utah, and I'm working on Florida right now.
Great.
And probably Washington soon, and Texas. So we're just it's a slow build.
But you're expanding. But you said that you can still provide advice to people because I'm thinking there may be people in different states that are watching this, right, and may want some advice. Do you have an advisory service as well that you provide that's aside from the lending aspect?
Right. So I'm happy to help anybody, with these really basic things. If I can't help you with the lending part of it, I do network with a lot of different loan officers around the country. So I would happily refer you to somebody who can help with the lending part of it. The divorce guidance, so it falls under the Fair Housing Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And so our guidance for divorce is actually covered in that protection in the same way that race is, or ethnicity, in that it's complementary, I guess I should say. It's a protected class if you're divorcing. So
it's wonderful.
So you should never pay a mortgage person for divorce mortgage guidance, I guess is my point, because they're a protected class.
That's wonderful. So it's a complimentary service that you would offer.
Right, exactly.
And so what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so my cell phone number actually is great. It's 209-640-1710.
And I'll put it on the screen too afterwards. I'll make sure that we have all that information too.
Perfect. Yeah, and my email address, and I'm on Instagram as Lone Lady Liz. So LOAN Lady Liz.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, I'm happy to help. I'm sorry for all the people going through it. I know it's not part of the plan.
It never is. It never is.
Yeah, but it's important to just create your team, create your professional team. You've got your mom, your friends, but you got to get the people.
They're not the professionals, though. We know that as a divorce coach. I realize those are not the professionals, and we sort of steer people away from moms and friends because they all have different opinions.
They do, yeah, and they do. Yeah. Well, and they just don't know. I mean, they have ideas, but they don't really know the nuances of how it's going to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And particularly in your field. Absolutely.
Right.
Liz, thank you very much. I am so glad. It was so nice to have spent time with you. Are there any other questions I should be asking that I haven't, do you think?
I don't think so. I think you covered it all. I think it's
great.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Well, it was nice having you on, and I hope that you get phone calls, and I'm hoping that this audience will hear what you had to say and will be inspired to reach out to you. So thank you again.
Yeah, you're sure welcome.
Okay.